Good morning, everyone.
Good
morning. So grateful that each of you showed up here live, and those of you joining us on YouTube. Thank you so much for your presence. I appreciate it. So today, I was asked to give the talk several months ago. And the home office sends us a list of suggested topics and themes and information. And when I got to that information, the word science popped out. And that wasn't their title, so I made it my title. Calling this talk, The Science of Passion. This whole month we're talking about bringing passion into your life. And because they had the word science somewhere buried in their description, I went with that because I absolutely love science. And that could be because I was raised in an atheist household. My parents were math and science teachers, and honestly, they'd rather me cuss than talk about God. Like, that's just the word God was almost forbidden in my house. And my parents installed in me a love of science, a love of the idea of being able to prove things and being able to think logically. And when I came into these rooms, this center used to be called Religious Science. We've changed our name since then, but how the word science and the name of the religion was very meaningful to me. And to this day, our beloved magazine is called Science of Mind, and that's the same title that our handbook that was created by our founder, Ernest Holmes, used, Science of Mind. And so science is an important part of our philosophy. And so that's what I'm going to bring into my talk today as we talk about passion. But I'm going to take a pause. And before we talk any further, I want to do an experiment. This is something I have thought about for a long time. And so I'm going to make use of you guys in the room with me right now as captive guinea pigs to help me with this experiment. I'm not even asking permission. I'm just telling you I'm going to do it. And those of you watching virtually, I'm not sure you're able to participate. You're welcome to try, but I will let you know how this experiment goes. So the experiment is I want to test out how we observe and notice energy. And to do that, I am going to ask you to make some noise. I'm going to ask you to clap your hands, stomp your feet. If you've got any music instruments around you, you can shake them, hoot and holler, whatever you want to do. But I am interested in us taking a look at the energy in this room. So I'll start it myself making noise, and I'll give you the universal sign for cut it out. But before we start our experiment, take a moment to just look within and to notice the energy you experience in this room right now. And I'm going to ask you to give it a number. 1 would be a pretty dead space, if you don't feel any energy around. And 10 is going to be the most energetic space you've ever been in. And so assign a number to this room right now. And remember what the energy feels like. And remember your number. All right. You know, if you got that, now's the time to make some noise. So let me hear you talk. All right. I didn't want to kill you with too much talking noise. So now I ask you to go within again. And to ask yourself, what kind of energy do you assign to this room? Give it another number. And now I'm going to ask you to give me the results of this experiment. So the results are going to be shown with your fingers. So a thumbs up is going to be, I noticed the energy increase. A thumb sideways is about the same. I don't know what you're talking about, lady. And a thumbs down is, no, it went down. I don't know how that would happen, but maybe it did for you. I don't know. So could you give me a vote with your thumbs? Did the energy go up? Did it stay the same? Did it go down? All right, thank you. Thank you. Down. So for those of you watching virtually, it was almost unanimous. It wasn't totally unanimous. It was almost unanimous to get thumbs up, that people sensed an increase in energy. And to be honest with you, I'm very glad to hear that because I had 2 parts of my speech right now. One was for no's and one was for yes. So I can skip that part of the speech. So my hypothesis was that we would feel an increase in energy. And a scientist might relate that to the difference between potential energy and kinetic energy, or the sound waves that we're having going through the air, or whatever the scientists are going to come up with to explain it. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but my point is we can sense energy, right? That is something that we have the ability to sense. And science spends a lot of time and energy studying energy, right? And making theories around energy. So the first science study I want to talk about is the idea about the Big Bang Theory, right? Scientists think that the universe was started in an instant, that there was an explosion that propelled particles that quickly became atoms, and then they've got a whole long line of sequences to get from that Big Bang to right here, right now. As far as science can tell, that's how the universe started. And spirituality is going to ask, what's the cause? Why did that Big Bang happen? And I'm going to tell you right now, we've had a couple times mentioned in music and in words that there are many words you can use to describe God, right? And in honor of my mom, who really hates that God word, I'm going to use the word spirit today, meaning the same exact thing. I'm just going to use a different word. So spirituality answers the question of what started the Big Bang with the answer of spirit. Spirit, original energy, is the original creator. And our spirituality says that that spirit is a creative energy of not only the Big Bang, but it is back of every creation that has ever happened ever since. That creative energy is capable of thinking, directing, and manifesting. We call spirit the original source. And we know that spirit is infinitely creative. So there are parallels between science and spirituality. For instance, they're both seeking to explain how does the universe work. Another thing that scientists do, they have a specific study called quantum physics, where they take a look at this very same question on the microscopic level. And you might know a little bit of quantum physics. I don't know a lot about quantum physics because it's really confusing. And even though I teach math professionally, it's still hard to learn. But I got a couple pieces out of it that I wanted to share with you. The first one you might have heard before. It's Einstein's theory of relativity. So Einstein came up with an equation that has been proven by scientists. And that equation is E equals mc squared. E stands for energy. M stands for mass, which is how much you have in an object. And c stands for the speed of light, which let me tell you is a really, really big number. And then squared means I take that big number and I multiply it times itself. And if you don't know math as well as I do, the equal sign means what's on one side of the equation is the exact same as what's on the other side of the equation. They're just expressed in different ways. So a little teeny amount of mass contains a huge amount of energy because we're multiplying it times that c squared. And the equal sign means they're equivalent. They are the same. So anything that we can recognize as having mass, any object at all, is also containing a huge amount of energy. Right? That's where we get our lovely nuclear bombs from, splitting of those atoms to release that energy. And that energy contains spirit. Right? Spirit is contained within each of us. Now, science is also going to tell us that things we perceive as solid really have a ton of vibrating particles within them that are spinning around in space, called electrons. And so science lets us know that what we perceive is not always the entire truth. Right? There is more to what your senses can perceive. And spirit certainly qualifies as that. Spirit's not readily apparent to us. And passion relates into that as well. So I define passion as something that you are enthusiastic about, something that brings you joy and happiness, something that you love doing. And as far as passion goes, it's also not going to be readily apparent necessarily. So to find your passions, you have to be willing to go within, to use that inner eye and pay attention to the part of you within you that has the intuition to know what is true for you. Here's another thing from science that relates to us. Scientists have discovered that light acts as both a wave, which is a form of energy, and a particle, which is form or matter. Light that we see has both characteristics at the same time. And so do we have two characteristics. We also have this dual nature. So you have part of you that is spirit, that is energy, that is contained within us that we call the soul. And you have part of you that is this human form, as Reverend Lane likes to call it, the meat suit that we're all walking around in. Yeah, magic suits. And so we are a delicate balance of those two dual natures interacting on a day-to-day form. And what I want you to remember is that you are spirit expressing itself through your human form. Our soul is that piece of spirit, and our soul's purpose, I believe, is to experience love and joy. It's as simple as that. We were put on this planet to experience love and joy. And our spirit is using our soul as that conduit, for we are the medium that spirit demonstrates itself in human form. And each of us is entirely unique. Therefore, it's up to each of us to decide for ourselves what our passions are, what brings us joy, and what brings us love. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, has a statement about this. He says, "You are a spontaneous, self-choosing center in life. And the great drama of being, the great joy of becoming, the certainty of external expansion." Now, we naturally find joy as we follow our passions. And if you've read the newsletter this week, Reverend Lane talks about how passion is another type of energy. And when you focus on this energy, you focus on your passion, you'll find that you're energized and that you're in harmony with your soul, and you're automatically going to be led to joy. So I'm going to say to you right now that it is to your great benefit to spend time contemplating and discovering your passions. And there's not just one passion. You're going to have many passions. And I'm going to tell you, the more energy and attention and emotion that you put into these passions, the more you're going to see this in your life. For this is how the universe is set up. As you are devoting your energy and your time and your emotions towards anything, spirit is listening, and that thing is being manifested in your life in some way, somehow. You're forming a mental mold, a divinely inspired mental mold. And the way it works is that mental mold comes out into this world. And that's what our teaching symbol, if you've been to any of our classes, is talking about. It's the same idea. And if you were in our Zoom class on Wednesday, you heard the author of our book, Patrick Arbola, saying a couple times, what you pay attention to persists, and it not only persists, but it also grows stronger. Right? So, like I said, we're talking about science here, so I'm not asking you to just take my word. I'm not trying to shove some dogma down your throat. Feel free to investigate for yourself. So here's an experiment that I've done before that you might try if you haven't before. Pick a color car that might be a little unique. And think about how often you see that car as you're driving around. And then, throughout the week, look for that color car. And compare how often you find it to what you thought you'd find before you started this little experiment. And I'm confident that you're going to be surprised how often that car pops up. That color is around a lot more than you realize because you paid attention to it, you put your energy into seeing it. And when you put your energy into seeing something, guess what? You see it. Right? So the idea that what you focus on not only persists, but grows stronger came into my world this past week. So I'm a teacher, and I came back to school, and there were some changes. And I was not happy about those changes. And so I spent several days thinking about how unhappy I was, talking to my peers who also were unhappy, going home and venting to my husband. And guess what? After a couple days, I noticed, hey, I'm even less happy. I'm focusing on all these things I don't like, and guess what I don't like is the feeling that I'm coming up with, right? Those feelings did not dissipate, they grew stronger. And so what I thought about is I need to shift my perspective. I need to look at the situation from another angle, because it is what it is. The changes are not something I have any say in the matter, right? They're going to be there. And so what I got in touch with is one of my passions is I really love to learn. Like, I find learning to be very energizing, very exciting. I just enjoy bringing new information into my head. Well, these changes involved me doing things in a different way. And originally I was looking at it from the perspective of, oh my God, this is more work. I got to do it. I don't want to do this work. And what I shifted to is, hey, this is an opportunity for me to learn new things, right? Because I can't do things the way I did it last year. I got to do it differently this year. And so having that shift to, oh, this is a cool chance to learn, was enough to help those feelings of negativity fade away. I'm not super thrilled about the changes, and yet I can come from a place of joy, and I can say, wow, this is my chance to live my passion in class today. And so the dissipation I felt is an example of how you can change your perception, you can change how you look at things, and when you change your thinking, you're going to change how you feel, and your thinking and your feelings are what lead to what's manifested in your life. So how do you find this passion? And the key to it is look for what brings you joy. When you become aware of something and you put your attention on it and how you feel about it, you begin that journey to finding and supporting your passions. And I want to note that your passion does not have to be some big grandiose thing. You don't have to be saying, my passion is to change the world. I want to end hunger. Those are wonderful things. If you want to that be your passion, that's fine, but there's nothing that says it has to be something big and all-encompassing, right? Your passion can be pulling weeds because you love how your flower bed looks. Your passion can be having some fun reading every single day, right? Those are very worthy passions. And as Howard Thurman once said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. So as you are building this momentum around your ideas and your passions, know Spirit is bringing this into form. For life is always going to reflect back to us what we expect based on our thoughts and beliefs. And once you find these intentions and you set your passion along to follow that experience, you're going to see that your life relates to your passion. Now, I am not saying that every event you have in your life is going to be fun and joyous and passion-filled, right? Because we know sometimes things happen in life that you didn't want to have happen, right? That we know that there'll be events that you associate in your head as being a bad thing or something you did not want. But I want you to remember when those things hit you, that every event is a creation of Spirit. That there are no coincidences, there are no mistakes. Spirit knows what it's doing. And it's your job to look at those situations and to find what's the lesson, what's the benefit, or what's the path to get out of this. Because I have found with every event that has happened, if I put enough thought, and sometimes it takes some time and distance to get out of the event before I can really see clearly, but I can always see where even the most negative things in my life led to something positive and beneficial. And it's not always easy to remember that when you're in the middle of that stuff that's going on that you don't want going on. And so when you are at those down points, that's the time when you really need to focus on leaning into your spiritual practices, right? So that can look like coming to services, that can look like going in prayer, that can look like meditating, journaling, reading spiritual books, working with a practitioner, whatever it is for you. But the worse life is, the more you need those spiritual practices, right? And sometimes human nature is when something's not going well, you tend to isolate or you tend to dive into the negativity, and what that's going to do is send you on a downward spiral. And so to help with that, you need to have those spiritual practices available for you in use every single day. So one of the most powerful things you can do is to shift your thinking. So ways to shift your thinking are things to be grateful for in the situation, look for some humor in the situation, and look for an opportunity to reframe things. Dr. Wayne Dyer talked about this whole process in his book, Inspiration, Your Ultimate Calling. And what Dr. Dyer said was, I stay inspired by making an energetic shift within myself. And when I do, the world looks completely different. Right? It's not that the world's going to change necessarily. It's that how I see it, how I perceive it is going to change. And that's where your power is. You might not have power over every situation that happens to you in life, but you have power over how you react to it. So we always have lots of choices as to how we pay attention. And the first step in shifting that perspective is to be aware of your thoughts, to pay attention to what you're thinking about a situation. And the next step is to ask yourself, are those thoughts bringing me to joy? Are those thoughts bringing me to love, to peace, to all these God qualities that I want in my life? And the answer is no. That's when you've got a sign it's time to make a change. Right? If it's worked, keep on doing it. If it's not working, you better make a change. So, no matter what type of experience you're having, good, bad, or otherwise, please always ask yourself, how could this be even better? How can I bring more joy into my life? Because joy is limitless. Even if you're in a good space, there's still room for more joy. How can I change how I look at this? And for inspiration, please pay attention to that quiet, still voice within you. For that's your soul speaking to you. That is spirit giving you the answer within you. It is nothing wrong with touching base with other people and getting other people's opinions, but to be the most functional, at the highest level you possibly can be, you got to decide for yourself. Right? You got to come from that authentic piece inside of you that says, this is what works for me. This is where I need to go. And what I love about our philosophy is we are all empowered to make that decision for ourselves. We are all unique spiritual beings, and that answer is going to be different for each one of us. Take a deep breath. Right? It's a lot of responsibility. So, as you're identifying these passions, keep looking for ways to bring in your life in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything big. I'm not saying you have to devote your entire day to your passion. But be creative in how you're bringing it in, and know that there are no limits to spirit. Spirit is infinitely creative. So there are infinite possibilities for how you're going to bring these passions in. So let's talk a little bit more down to earth. So these are the specific things that I recommend you do to bring your passions to life every single day. So the first thing I encourage you to do is sometime in the morning, build into your routine a time to practice mindfulness and gratitude. So this could be during a meditation, it could be while you're laying in bed, hitting the snooze button. That's my favorite method. In between snoozes, I'm doing a little bit of thinking. Okay. But notice your thoughts and think about, what do you have to be grateful for? Set the tone of your day right from the very beginning by visualizing your passions. How are they going to be expressed for the day? Focus on what emotions do you want to feel? What joy, love, or anything else that you feel called towards bringing into your day. And ask yourself, what exactly am I being called for? And what action can I take towards that calling today? And then at the end of the night, you kind of bookend yourself. So at the end of the night, I ask you to again take some time for reflection. Review your day and think about the actions that you did take place and ask yourself, how did they support my passions? How were my passions expressed today? And again, the idea of having gratitude is a very powerful tool. So at the end of the day, I again encourage you to think back about what things, what people, what places, what situations from today are you grateful for? And that's how you can bring your passions into your daily life. So, like I said, science is really important to me, and I don't want you to take anything I say verbatim. I want you to go out there and I want you to experiment with it. Set some hypotheses. What's going to happen if I do this every morning? How am I going to feel differently? And pay attention to what changes. For there is a science behind our spirituality. And it's up to you to use this science to discover yourself. What makes your life better? Because we all have a different answer to that question. And for now, in the meantime, I am knowing that you live a life full of joy and love. And that life is available to you right here, right now. And so it is.
And so it is.